You're listening to the Kelly Green Hour for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANY Podcast or visit us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast, as it is officially Dallas week. The Philadelphia Eagles, who sit at 3-3, face the Dallas Cowboys, who are also 3-3. So this is a battle for first place in the NFC East. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and joining me as always is Connor. Connor, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. It's the weekend. So that's all I gotta say, and it's the weekend of Dallas week, so even better.
Yep, they saved the best for last on Sunday night. So the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys will do battle in Jerry World. If I'm not mistaken, there's probably going to be a bunch of Eagles fans in that stadium. As we both know, Eagles fans tend to travel well. But before we get into this matchup, I wanted to touch on two things. First, Jalen Ramsey being traded to the Los Angeles Rams for a 2020 and 2021 first-round pick and a 2021 fourth-round pick. And this was after the Rams placed Aqib Talib on IR and traded Marcus Peters to the Baltimore Ravens. What were your thoughts on the trade and the compensation that the Rams gave up to Jacksonville to get the best corner? If he's not the best corner, he's the top two corner in the National Football League.
For me, and I tweeted about it, I think the Jaguars won this deal mostly for the sole fact that they've talked about an extension with Jalen Ramsey, and he has expressed interest. But last I heard, he said he liked the deal. If you like the deal, why aren't you taking the deal? So my fears go out to LA Rams fans because I don't think he's going to re-sign in LA. So I think it's going to end up being a winning deal for the Jaguars because they got Gardner Minshew, they got a solid defense, they got some good young pieces in place. Whereas the Rams, I thought they were all in last year. I don't think you can be any more all in than they are this year. They've traded their first round pick 5 years in a row. They're literally at the point now where they either have to win now, or if they do enter a rebuild, they have nothing to rebuild with except a bunch of really bad contracts. And I mean, you look at the contracts that they already have in place: Aaron Donald, Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks. Some of their there's a couple big offensive linemen set to become free agents this offseason. I just can't. I just doesn't make sense to me personally from the Rams' perspective. But as far as the compensation goes, of course, it's a lot, and it's exactly what we expected. But I think that the right team, waiting it out, would have been able to get the price down. But the Rams got desperate with the Talib situation.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that held the Eagles back, or Howie Roseman back, was the fact that he got traded without signing a new deal. I think if Howie
That's what blew my mind. If you're giving up I'd give up one first for no extension, but if you're giving up two first, you got to have that verbal and then signed commitment the next day when he comes to your team. You can't let that dangle out there. You know his interest is to play elsewhere. You know he's voiced his interest in playing in Vegas. He's voiced his interest in playing elsewhere. And you're going to let him get away without signing a contract, and you gave up that much?
Yeah, and I think the one thing you brought up is important is the contracts that they already have on the books. Aaron Donald, which it's a great contract because Aaron Donald is the best player in the league. Todd Gurley's deal, not looking so good. Jared Goff, he's not a good quarterback. You know, he's a product of Sean McVay talking to him until the microphone in his helmet cuts off at the 15-second mark of the play clock. Sean McVay is telling Goff what the defense is doing. And if you look back at the Super Bowl, Bill Belichick knew that. Bill Belichick waited, changed up the defense once the microphone in the helmet or the speaker in the helmet cut off, and that's why the Rams couldn't do anything in the Super Bowl. And you know, you're right. The salary cap, yes, the salary cap goes up, but you can only afford to give top dollar to a certain amount of players. I mean, so Jared Goff has the top quarterback deal. Aaron Donald has the top, doesn't anymore, but has the second highest defensive player deal. Jalen Ramsey is kind of can hold the Rams at ransom because they traded everything, and he's going to want to be paid as the highest paid corner. I mean, they have Eric Weddle. They have a bunch. I mean, Brandon Cook's got a big contract, as you mentioned. They have a bunch of contracts on the books that are not going to look good. And we already know the Gurley one is already looking a little iffy. And this isn't going to help them down the road. And maybe Howie is hoping Jalen Ramsey hits free agency and he'll give him a crap ton of money without having to give up the draft picks. They have the cap space. You know, they're going to be losing a bunch of players next year when, you know, Peters retires or leaves and Sproles leaves or retires. The safeties, I don't think both of them are coming back. Darby leaves. So they're going to have a bunch of money coming off the books. So maybe that's what Howie's hoping for. And while we're not happy as Eagles fans, I would have personally made the deal. I don't care if he was going to sign a contract or not. Your secondary, we saw what the secondary looked like against Minnesota. You need help. Jalen Mills is coming back. He's starting this week. He's not Jalen Ramsey. You know, so they need help. I would have personally done the deal because he's a 24-year-old who's the best player in the league, and you could have him for the next 6-7 years at top, playing at top rate of a corner. So personally, again, I would have done it. Got to applaud the Rams. They're going for it. They know that their window is closing and closing fast because of the contracts, so they're going for it. And the Jacksonville Jaguars got what they got out of it, and you can't blame them for making the deal.
No, absolutely not. Like I said, the Jags have a lot of good pieces in place, and those 3 picks provide some really tremendous value picks. So I think that the Jaguars are going to end up coming out on top. I mean, you could say if the Rams win the Super Bowl that they came out on top, but like I listened to a lot of sports talk radio. A lot of guys said that the Rams winning the Super Bowl or a team winning the Super Bowl is not because of Jalen Ramsey. You're going to look back and you're going to say Jalen Ramsey made good plays, but it's all going to come down to what Jared Goff and Sean McVay are able to do and able to produce at the end of the day, because they're the ones that got put the points up on the board. Jalen Ramsey is one of only 12 guys who's trying to keep points off of the board. So it'll all come down to, on this team, Sean McVay. Just as if we made this deal, it would come down to what Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz are going to be able to do to put points up on the board come the Super Bowl if we were to make it that far.
That's very true. And then the next point I want to talk about before we get to the game is this reporting sources to Josina Anderson.
It's plain and simple at this point. This team under Doug Peterson, the culture that's been built, if you have a problem, voice it and put your damn name on it. Especially if this is the same person who made this big fuss and made this big deal last season.
I don't think it's the same person, because last year I think. Are you talking about the one to Joe Santa Liquido, or are you talking about the person who went to Josina Anderson and said that Zach Ertz is getting too many targets?
I'm talking about the Josina Liquido one. Okay. Yeah, okay. Because like at the end of the day, if you're going to sit there, if you're going to critique, if you're going to judge, I think Doug Peterson's built an open enough culture that you should be able to go to him. You should be able to go and talk to him. Maybe it's the kick in the ass that he really needs, is a player going up there and saying, what the hell are we doing? I mean, could Carson Wentz check down a little bit more? Probably.
I don't know. Well, we're talking about this offense is nothing but check downs right now because they don't have speed on the outside. So I disagree with that. I personally think it's a defensive player that's talking. I don't think it's anybody on the offense. It can't be Alshon. He had 10 catches last week. So I personally don't think that the offense. See, whoever's talking doesn't know what they're talking about. This is a check down offense right now. They don't, like I mentioned, they don't have speed on the outside to throw the ball down the field. So everything for Carson is within 5 and 10 yard range. So I disagree with whoever made that, that complaint or whoever to Josina Anderson. I just disagree with it.
And I mean, if you're making it on the offensive side of the ball, you got to shake your head because you're part of the problem. If it's Alshon Jeffrey, I mean, there's been drops, there's been problems. If it's Nelson Aguilar, you've dropped the ball. If it's anyone on the offensive line, you've given up pressures, you've given up sacks, you've created the situations that Carson Wentz has to get himself out of. At the end of the day, if it's an offensive player, you got to shake your head, man, because you are part of the problem. You are part of why Carson Wentz has to play the way he has to play. But that's not to say it's not correct, but I think it can be handled in a better situation, in a better forum, not necessarily going to Josina Anderson and into a text message and saying your thoughts. Like, get it off your chest and put your name to it if you have a problem. And something could you look at Stephon Diggs, something changed there. It could have just been because he faced one of the worst secondaries in the NFL.
I think
in
that's
the
what
Philadelphia Eagles. There's a good chance, but he got his volume, he got his targets, he got his game of the year. So that's not to say that they won't continue to do that. The Vikings, when Stephon Diggs stepped up and made the comments he made, they said, we're not moving him, we're keeping him. They're trying to keep him happy. They're trying to get Kirk Cousins to put the ball in his hands. Sometimes it's harder than it looks. And I think that it's easy for us to sit here and talk about it. But at the same time, we're not NFL coaches. We're not the person who made the comment. We're not a quarterback. So it's really difficult for us to kind of make an opinion, a true opinion on the situation and what's going on. Because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
The one thing I do know is winning cures all. So if the Eagles can get back on their winning ways, we won't hear any of this talk anymore.
Boy, is it a massive week. They need this win.
It's a huge week. It's a huge stretch of games. We know that starting with the Vikings last week, the 6-game stretch that the Eagles have could define their season. So let's get into this Eagles-Dallas week. At the beginning of the week, I was feeling very confident that the Eagles could win. Dallas is getting healthy right now. Amari Cooper is going to play. Randall Cobb's going to play. Tyron Smith is going to play. Lael Collins is going to play. Byron Jones is going to play. Everybody that on Wednesday there was talk of them not playing, they're all playing this week. The only person that's out is Anthony Brown, their slot corner. So let's start with the Dallas offense. Again, this team is coming on they are on a 3-game losing streak, having lost to the Saints, the Packers, and the Jets last week at MetLife. We know that the Cowboys offense goes through Zeke. Where Zeke is going is where this Dallas offense is going to go. What are your thoughts on the weapons and Dak Prescott and this offensive line and how they pertain going up against this Eagles defense?
I think overall the offense has actually kind of struggled. I mean, the numbers, they rank 3rd in passing and 7th in rushing offense, but I think that's due in large part to the inflation of the games against weak teams. The first 3 games of the season, they had massive numbers, but those numbers come from the fact that they played the Dolphins, the Redskins, and the Giants. Yeah. So, I mean, to sit there and think that's just like the New England defense, to think that you can measure a team based on having one of the easiest strength of schedules, I don't believe in. I mean, you look at Dak. Dak has struggled in the games that matter. He struggles against teams that matter. And so as soon as he faced New Orleans and he couldn't do anything, as soon as he faced Green Bay, granted, there was double the garbage time because they fell behind so much so quickly that he got a lot of volume, he got a lot of yards, he got a lot of attempts and completions because of the garbage time that he was given. So, I mean, he's struggled immensely, I think. And, I mean, I made the comment before, he banked on himself for a big contract, and I bet he's shaking his head at that right now because I don't think the schedule gets any easier beyond facing the Redskins and the Giants a second time for this Dallas team.
No, the difference between schedules, the Eagles' we'll say first 10, 11 games are, riddled with tough games. Dallas's first half of the schedule is pretty easy. So, and then the Eagles' last 5 games are all 5 winnable games. If the Eagles can get through this stretch that they're in now, at, let's say, if they can get to the 11 game mark at, like, say 6-5, which means you win, you go 3-2 in the next 5 games, you win the last 5, you go 11-5, and you win the NFC East. So this I think this Sunday night's game is more important to Dallas than it is the Eagles, and I say that because it's a home game for Dallas, A, and B, their schedule, the Eagles' schedule doesn't get any easier over the next 4 weeks either, but Dallas' schedule gets a lot tougher. They get Seattle. I don't know if they get Seattle, actually. They get the Rams, I'm pretty sure. They get the Patriots. So, like, they still get the Bills, and we get the Bills. So they're going to be playing a bunch of tough games over the course of the rest of the season. So this, in my opinion, this game is more important for Dallas. Also, I wanted to mention, we're going to see strength versus strength. The Eagles' run defense, which is top 4, top 3 in the NFL, against Zeke Elliott, who, since he's come into the NFL, leads the league in rushing. Who do you think that matchup favors?
I personally believe that it favors us because Dallas's offensive line hasn't looked as good as they looked in prior years.
They haven't been healthy. They didn't have their 2 starting tackles last week.
They haven't been healthy, but I mean, we're sitting there and we're saying these guys are starting, but I'm not going to be so quick to say that they're starting fully healthy, that they're starting at 100% of their game. Amari Cooper has struggled. He has this injury that just popped up in his ankle. He's been fighting plantar fasciitis all season. None of these guys, I don't think, are coming in fully 100% healthy. So
I also think he got healthier when he saw that Eagles defensive tape last week against the Vikings. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that would make me feel a hell of a lot better too. But I mean, I would say that it still favors the Eagles' defensive line because I mean, you saw what Cox did with Dalvin Cook last week. There's no running Zeke right up the middle. He's going to have to try and move to the outside. He's going to have to try and get to that second level, which would be huge because our second level consists of TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton this week. So to get to
Nate Jerry, who I hate.
And Nate Jerry, who you hate very much. So I mean, at the end of the day, if he can get to that second level and figure out a way to get to the second level, Zeke's going to go off. Zeke's going to have a huge game. Zeke could have his game of the year against us if he can get to that second level.
Which a lot of people are expecting because he hasn't had a good season since signing that contract.
No, and I mean, I love TJ Edwards. We talked about. I like Alex Singleton. I think he's good. I'm iffy on Nate Jerry. I don't really like him. I don't really hate him as much as you. I'm the fence sitter on him because he's been okay. And then there's Camus Grugier-Hill, who's been not fully healthy, I don't think either. So, I mean, you get to that second level, and there's a good chance that you're breaking out some big yardage, but you got to get by Fletcher Cox. You got to get by Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, who are winning at an extremely high percentage against the offensive lines this year. So, I mean, it'll be tough sledding for Zeke this week, and he has to hope his offensive line puts on an A1 performance and that they're coming back at least 90%, 95% healthy.
That stat you keep mentioning, the defensive ends winning rate, I think that's a bogus stat. If you take out that Jets game, we have 4 sacks on the year. They need I consider winning getting to the quarterback, and they're not getting to the quarterback. They had Brandon Graham had the only sack, and he was lined up at defensive tackle last week. Barnett had the sack against Aaron Rodgers, the strip fumble, so it wasn't a real sack. I mean, he got his arm on the ball, fortunately. So I don't want to hear any more of this win percentage. I want to see results, and that's getting to the quarterback, and that's not what the defensive ends are doing right now. None of the defensive line is doing that right now. So I need to see, forget this whole, they're winning at a rate, whatever. Who comes up with that stat? PFF, probably.
I mean, I don't think that was a PFF stat.
Oh, well, doesn't matter. I just think it's a bogus one. I want to see results in terms of sacks, get after the quarterback, force fumbles, because if Dak, look, as much as I hate Dak Prescott, he threw for over 400 yards against us in that second game in Dallas. If he's not getting pressured, if he's getting time, Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, Michael Gallup, they will beat our secondary, and he will have a field day.
I think what that stat speaks to more is the fact that we're getting pressure at a fast rate, but they're getting the ball out of their hands that much quicker. You look at those games where they're winning on the outside, and that ball is coming out of quarterback's hands at a far faster rate than it was getting out of quarterback's hands last year. So I think why the stat may be bogus, the stat also is what's leading to pressure. And I mean, sure, we don't love the sack numbers, but we have QB hit, fairly high QB hit numbers for these guys. And it's creating pressure, and what better quarterback to have that against than Dak Prescott, who is one of the worst when his pocket is no longer clean. So, I mean, you may not love the stat, but the stat could rear its ugly head on this Sunday if they can get the pressure to Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott makes bad decisions.
I hope so, because obviously this is a huge game, and the Eagles defense needs a bounce back. So let's talk about the Dallas defense now. DeMarcus Lawrence, the big money man, in his career against the Eagles, in 9 games, has a big fat 0 sacks and has 5 hits. That's it. He does nothing. Lane Johnson owns him, and yet he's the one that keeps opening his mouth. Talked about after Doug Peterson made his declaration that the Eagles were going down to Dallas, they're going to win. Again, I don't know what you want your head coach to say. Do you want your head coach to say, "Oh, we're going to go down there and we're going to lose"? No. But I don't care that Doug Peterson said that they're going to go down there and win in Dallas and be first place in the NFCs, because that's what I want my coach saying. I don't want my coach saying, "Oh, we're going to go down there and lose." No, I don't want to hear that. But DeMarcus Lawrence comes out and says that, is he playing? Is he going to be on the field helping him? No, so he needs to shut his ass up. You know what? DeMarcus Lawrence needs to shut his ass up. He does nothing against the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Absolutely nothing. When Carson Wentz got the contract, he earlier this year, he tweeted out, the more money they make, the harder they fall, or something like that. Again, coming from somebody who has 0 sacks against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't want to hear it from him anymore. So I hope Lane Johnson shuts his ass up and they run right behind Lane Johnson and run the ball right down Dallas's throats. Their defense isn't the same as last year. This defense is not that good this year, right up to this point. The linebackers, which, Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith, they were talked about as being the best linebacker combo in the league. Jalen Smith has fallen off after getting his contract, and we haven't heard anything about Van Der Esch. Byron Jones is looking for a contract, but he's coming back. He's hobbled. Their defensive line, Crawford on their defensive line, he just went on IR. So they have injury issues too. They haven't played that well. And if there is a week for the Eagles to get right on offense, it should be this week.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my big things was to attack Van Der Esch and to attack Smith because of how bad they've been and how much they've regressed. This can be a big Ertz, Goddard, and Sanders, which we're getting accustomed to game, because these guys are not what they were. You alluded to it, so I'm going to throw this stat out there. Van Der Esch and Smith have allowed more than 136 yards after the catch. There's only 27 linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks who have done that in the NFL this year. There are 2 of them, and there are 241 eligible players for that stat in the NFL. So this is a humongous game for Ertz and Goddard and Sanders and anyone who's going to attack the middle of the field and those linebackers, because these guys aren't who they were last year. And maybe it's a slow start to the season, but hell, it's week 7. So if it's a slow start to the season, I think that's just an excuse, and you're just hiding behind something now, because they are definitely not what they were.
I see you stealing my key my key from last week. Because remember, if my key from last week was getting Miles Sanders lined up against one of the linebackers, Kendricks or Barr, for the Vikings, and what happened? They got him lined up against Kendricks, and he caught the long touchdown. He also had a long pass reception. Again, he's our leading receiver ever since week 1, which your running back should not be. So
that's embarrassing. That's great, but like, I want Sanders, like, if he's going to be our leading receiver, it's because he's also like Christian McCaffrey, the leading rusher, the leading receiver, the leading everything for our team. And that means we got something real special. But instead, it's just alluding to the fact that we have a lot of problems at the wide receiver position. It's not alluding to we have a real special athlete in Sanders, which I'm not going to say we don't. But, I mean, you get where I'm going with this. We just have some real bad issues with wide receivers.
I definitely agree with you. We were all hoping that Deshaun was going to be back this week, but that's not looking likely. So we got Alshon's going to have to step up. Nelson has to step up. Arcega-Whiteside can't get on the freaking field ahead of Mac Hollins, which astounds me because Mac Hollins just wants to play special teams. I would love to see Greg Ward get a shot, but I don't know what they're going to have to do. This has to be a Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. They need to take advantage of the weapons.
And you know what?
The weapons that those two are.
Doug Peterson had spoken out last week that the reason that J-Jaw doesn't get on the field is because of Alshon Jeffrey, and that personally makes no sense to me. If you can put together some sort of package where you have Jeffrey and J-Jaw on the field and J-Jaw jumps Mac Hollins, I think you're equally as dangerous. I think you're even more dangerous if you have two guys who can go up, jump ball, and get that ball out of the sky. Not on every play, but I mean, that shouldn't be a reason not to give J-Jaw some snaps, not to give J-Jaw some targets. That just sounds like Doug Peterson not having confidence in his players, not having confidence in his receivers, which is a shame, because if he's holding them back because he doesn't have confidence in them, there's a lot more players who should be held back on that offense at the same time than just J-Jaw.
I agree. So let's go to our keys to the game. Give me an offensive key. Give me a defensive key. How the Eagles can finally beat Dallas, and they're on a 3-game losing streak to Dallas. Their last win was in the only real game against Dallas in 2017, because in week 17, the Eagles didn't play anybody. They played Nate Sudfeld most of the game, and Dallas won that game in Philly. But the Eagles they got to find a way to beat Dallas, obviously. If they want to win the division, step 1 is Sunday night. So give me your keys to the game.
So the first one, I guess, for the defensive side of the ball, I said the defensive line has to be stout against the run and in pressure and Dak. All across the board, they have to be stout against the run. Last week, they stopped Cook. They gave Cook a hell of a time, but then they ended up letting Madison run wild last week, taking the ball to the outside. So like I said, Zeke has some crazy potential if he can get to that second level, and they can't figure out how to tackle. So hopefully they figure out how to tackle and he doesn't get to the second level like Madison did last week, because if Madison can do that, Zeke will tear apart that second level. Zeke will have himself a feast on us if the defensive line doesn't keep Zeke around it or behind it. And in saying that the defensive line has to be stout, definitely pressure Dak. Pressure. You hate the stat. I love it. If you can win on the ends and you can get that pressure and Cox pushes the pocket and you make a dirty pocket for Dak, he is one of the worst in a non-clean pressured pocket. I saw the stat. I wish I had kept it, but I didn't. He's bottom 5 of all quarterbacks who have played a minimum of 20 snaps. So I think he's actually below 32nd right now. So he is a horrible passer when the pocket is under pressure or collapsing. So even if you're not getting the sacks, we want the sacks. We want the QB hits. But if you can collapse that pocket and you can get Dak making the wrong decisions and bad decisions, that would be humongous for not only the defensive line as a whole, but the secondary, and it would alleviate a lot of pressure from the secondary as well. But that's also something we've been looking for all season. And on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to steal what you did last week with Mike Zimmer versus Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson has got to beat Jason Garrett, for the love of God. Mike Zimmer's a smart guy. I get it. That guy can be a tough competition. Jason Garrett, his best skill is clapping his hands. It has nothing to do with what he's saying in the headset. It has nothing to do with what's on the paper in front of him. It has everything to do with the physical motion of bringing his two hands together. So this is a huge game for whoever wins from a momentum and a team morale perspective. You saw the video of Jason Garrett reaching out for high fives, getting nothing. You heard the anonymous player speaking out about Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. One of these teams needs this game. Both of them need it really bad, but one of them is actually going to get it, and it will be huge, I think, for one or the other. I would even go so far as say that whoever wins this game may very well go on to win the division. But
I don't necessarily believe that. I mean, because, say Dallas does win this game, if they lose this game, that's 4 straight losses, and that would be a bad look, and that could probably be the end of Jason Garrett. But if Dallas
Jason Garrett's going nowheres.
Yeah. Well, if they lose this game, I wouldn't be shocked if he were to go. But if say Dallas does win this game, again, their schedule gets really tough down the stretch. The Eagles' schedule gets easier. I mean, 2 against the Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins, Dallas at home. So it's possible that
But
Dallas
I guess
wins,
but the
Eagles have a better shot of building momentum later in the year.
The Eagles are certainly also relying on succeeding at least to the 500 level in this stretch of 6 games as well, because these 6 games are big. Yeah, I know that we see the final 5 games as a really easy schedule, but let's be serious. We're bound to lose one. Look at some of the games we've lost this year. We're bound to lose one. So it's really contingent on the success in this next stretch of 5 games. Get into that 3-2 or that 4-1 level. But yeah, I trust Peterson and Wentz over Garrett and Prescott any day. I will take Peterson and Wentz. I will stand on their side any day, even if Garrett and Prescott beat us in the last 2 games or beat us in. You can put any number in front of me of how many times they may have beat us, or any stat about Garrett and Prescott versus the Eagles. I'm standing by Peterson and Wentz always. We need to see, I alluded to it earlier on our episode, there was Breezy at the start of the week. We need to see Big Balls Peterson making big play calls within the first 3 downs of a possession, not on a fake field goal. We need to see him not run the ball on the first 2 downs. We need to see him mix it up. Throw on first down, run on second down, mix it up, bring out some of those plays. Be the play caller that led Nick Foles to the Super Bowl, not the play caller who seems to be holding Carson Wentz back and holding this offense back. We need a quick start, and I think that relies on a really pristinely called game by Doug Peterson. So I got to say, Doug Peterson has to beat Jason Garrett is at the top of the offensive keys to the game.
I definitely agree with you there. So my keys, Andre Dillard is getting his first start. He's going up against Robert Quinn, who's the best defensive lineman for Dallas right now. That is a huge matchup. He's the future, the current now and the future left tackle, of this team. The guy that's going to protect the blind side of Carson Wentz. He did not look good last week coming in cold, but he's had a full week of practice. So hopefully a full week of practice is going to allow him to come in strong and show, he gave up, with Washington State last week. He gave up 1 sack, and we know how much Mike Leach likes to throw the football. So we know he has that potential, but now we need to see him be a road grader in the run game. So my key for the matchup to watch for the Eagles offense is Andre Dillard against Robert Quinn, and if DeMarcus Lawrence goes to that side. He's got to win those battles one-on-one. Cannot allow Quinn to get in and hit Wentz. And obviously we know Wentz has the ability to make escaping plays and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see the type of offensive game plan that Doug Peterson comes up with. Hopefully helps the rookie out. Maybe help, give him a chipper on that side, whether it's the running back or a tight end over there helping him out. On defense, tackle Zeke, because we all know that he has the ability to make one man miss, make two man miss, and he hasn't had that big game yet, like we mentioned earlier. So tackle Zeke, get after Zeke, and force Dak Prescott to beat you. Because if you're going to force him to throw with a hobbled Randall Cobb and with a hobbled Amari Cooper, maybe it will go in our favor. And I still don't have trust in the secondary. I still want Howie Roseman to make a move for Chris Harris, Patrick Peterson, Xavier Howard, whoever it is. Any one of them would be better than what we have now. But that's what he's got to do by the end of the year. He has to make a move to upgrade this secondary. But it's very important for the linebackers. Nigel Bradham's not going to play. Zach Brown got released, so it's going to be Kamu Grugier-Hill. Nate Gary, unfortunately. We'll see some TJ Edwards. I don't think we're going to see Alex Singleton on defense. He's primarily going to be special teams, in my opinion. But if he gets on the field, they have to be able to tackle Zeke. We see it too many times where our corners, our safeties, sometimes our linebackers, when they go to hit a running back, they duck their head and they just get jumped over. You can't have that. See what you hit wrap drive. So don't be with your head down. Don't be diving at Zeke so he can jump over like he did last year. I think it was to Trey Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken. So tackle Zeke, and Andre Dillard has to win his one-on-one battles with Robert Quinn. They're my keys to the game.
Agreed. I actually had a key matchup to watch as Dillard versus Quinn and Johnson versus Lawrence. So those two are going to be really, really key ones to watch, because that's going to dictate whether there's pressure on Carson Wentz or whether Carson Wentz has a clean pocket to work with. And we all love when Carson Wentz has a clean pocket, but even when he scrambles, he can make some crazy plays happen.
I'd much rather see him scramble. He's better when he's outside the pocket and he's moving around and he's allowing his slow-footed receivers to get some space, because we all both know they don't have speed right now at the receiver position. All right, so before we get to the Vaunted Pick segment, Week 6 in the National Football League had a lot. What is your one overreaction or, your biggest take from Week 6 in the National Football League?
So are we going to do overreaction, or are we going to relive an Eagles-Cowboys memory that we love first?
Oh, I forgot about that. Give me that.
Man, yeah, I was going to say, I got a couple listed here. You're going to leave me hanging?
I forgot.
No, one of my favorites. So I'll give you a game one and another game one. That David Akers at the draft in Dallas.
That was good.
Absolutely one of my favorite memories.
Was it better than Drew Pearson's though? Like if you took your Eagles fandom out, was Drew Pearson's in Philly better than Akers in Dallas?
I mean, I think you could argue for either or. Any time that you're in a situation where you can bash the hometown fans or rile them up or razz them a bit, it's just funny.
We also did see the big difference though. When Pearson did it, he got booed because it was all Philly fans. When Akers did it, you didn't really hear much.
The show was, the crowd in Philly for the draft
was amazing.
I mean, Nashville did amazing this past year. I think it was Nashville where it was. Yeah. But I mean, I still think Philly probably had the better crowd. I just think they're high in numbers.
We have the more loyal fan base. Let's be real.
And then from a game perspective, Deshaun Jackson 2010, we're gonna miss that so much this week. The Victor Jackson 91-yard passing catch and the 210-yard receiving performance. Man, do we ever need something like that this week?
Is that the one where he did the nasty plunge into the end zone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That is one of my favorite Eagles and Cowboys memories, and boy, would we ever love to relive it this weekend, but it's a shame that Jackson won't be there.
This is one that I want to relive. I was at this game. It was in, I want to say December of 2008, week 17. The Eagles both the Eagles and the Cowboys technically needed like 5 things to happen. They needed the Raiders to beat the Bucs in Tampa, and we know what the Raiders coming to the East they couldn't do. The Raiders won. They needed Houston to beat the Bears, and Houston beat the Bears. And there were a couple other things that needed to happen, but all of it happened. And the Eagles hosted Dallas, and it was a 4:25. I'm gonna say it was a 4:25 kickoff, and the winner of the game was going to clinch a wild card berth. At the time when I bought the tickets, bought them off of Craigslist, and the game meant nothing. I went with a Dallas. I have a friend who's a Dallas fan, and he wanted to go, and I was like, cool, I'll go, because we both thought the game was gonna mean nothing, so it'd just be fun to go. We got 50-yard line tickets, 9 rows behind the Dallas bench, and T.O. was on Dallas at the time. And we got the tickets for like $100 each. 50-yard line, 9 rows behind the Dallas bench. And by the time we got to the game, everything that needed to happen happened. And, it was like a 3-3 game going into the second quarter. And then the floodgates opened. The Eagles ended up winning the game 44-6. Brian Dawkins had a couple strips from strips of Marion Barber. Josilio Hansen had a fumble return for a touchdown. I think a defensive end had a fumble return for a touchdown. Tony Romo had an awful game. McNabb had a good and that year the Eagles ended up going to the NFC Championship game and losing to Arizona. But I was at that game and it was such a great game. And the best part about it was going with a Dallas fan who wanted to leave by halftime. But I said, no. So we stayed and watched the entire game. And when you're at an Eagles game or you're even at a Phillies game and something big is happening and something huge, a huge play happens, you hug people around you. You don't even know who the hell they are. But who cares? Because the Eagles are kicking ass and taking names and going to the playoffs and almost going to another Super Bowl. But yeah, that was a great game to be at.
All right, now we can overreact to week 6. I feel like we can go to that on a really positive, upbeat note.
Okay, go ahead.
Mostly because I'm from Canada and I've never gotten to get that feeling in my life, so it's kind of depressing. Thanks so much.
Get down here for an Eagles Dallas.
All I can do is look to one of my 3 dogs and say, like, they see me excited and they come up to me and I'm like, oh fuck.
And your girlfriend
I'll hug you.
And your girlfriend rolls her eyes.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically exactly that way. My overreaction for week 6, Kyle Allen over Cam Newton. I'm sorry. I just don't believe it. I just haven't seen enough out of Kyle Allen.
I have a question for you about that, though.
Okay.
With what happened last night? And, okay, Patrick Mahomes may be out only 3 weeks, but say something happens and he's out longer. Would you, if you were the Chiefs, trade for Cam Newton?
If it got really,
or Nick Foles.
If it got really, I don't know about Nick Foles. Well, I guess it depends whoever it's a bigger cap hit. Foles has to. He's at like $22 million, man. You can't beat that as a backup for the cap hit. But I would probably consider it. I just don't think it'll get that bad for Mahomes. If he takes, like, if it's 4 weeks, he's got to take off 3 or 4. Take the 4. Take the extra time. Get yourself right.
I didn't mean to cut you off on nothing, but that was a question that I was thinking. Like, you saw what happened to Mahomes, and we see what's happened with Kyle Allen and what he's doing in Carolina. And I agree with you. I think I don't know though. I think it would be hard to go back to Cam Newton.
I understand it's hard to go back to Cam Newton, but I think it's a complete overreaction. Cam Newton has not been healthy since like the middle of last season. And finally, this is his adequate time to heal everything that he has going on. He has one of the worst coaches for handling quarterbacks. I don't think you can get any worse than Titanic Ron when you're considering someone and the way that they handle quarterbacks. Cam Newton was in a walking boot during the preseason, and he's out there in week 1 playing football. He wasn't right. And I think Newton at full health can still be a top 10, maybe even a top 5 quarterback in this league. He reminds me of just like a bigger version of Russell Wilson and could be equally important to their team if used right and if fully healthy. And I think that it's an absurd overreaction. Kyle Allen is succeeding because of the pieces around him. You take Christian McCaffrey away from him, and I bet that 4-0 Kyle Allen could easily become 0-4 Kyle Allen.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey's probably the best running back in the game right now. So.
Christian McCaffrey is presently, it's a debate between him and Russell Wilson, but one of them is the MVP because they are literally carrying their teams on their backs.
My biggest take was that Russell Wilson is going to win the MVP this year. I don't care what anybody says. He is the Seattle Seahawks. We see what he does.
Well, because you talk most valuable player, and most people think, oh, it's got to be to the league. Russell Wilson he is the one person in the offseason who took a massive contract and is playing to every last penny of that contract right now. He put that team on his back. He is carrying that team. You can say, oh, Tyler Lockett, oh, this, oh, that. No. He's
not being carried by that defense like he was in the past when they had the Legion of Boom. Also, to your Cam Newton point, Cam Newton will not be on the Panthers next year.
Oh, absolutely not. No chance.
I thought I was going to get some fight back from that. All right.
No chance. If a team is smart, they're out there shopping for Cam Newton now, because this is a good buy low point that you can get a top 10 quarterback. You let him get to 100% and you put him in your lineup, that man will carry your team.
We'll see about that. All right, so let's go to the Vaunted pick segment. You increased your lead on me. You're up 25-19. This is how we did last week. We both picked the Eagles to win. That obviously didn't happen, so we took an L there. In your lock of the week, you took the Seahawks over the Browns. It was a 1.5 point spread. You won that 32-28, so you covered that. And in your upset, we both took the Saints over the Jaguars. And it
was ugly, but it happened.
It was very ugly, but it did happen. So the Jaguars falling to the Saints 13-6. And then I took two upsets last week. I don't know why even when I picked this game, I said I don't know why I'm trusting Marcus Mariota and the Titans.
Marcus Mariota got his ass benched. Right?
Oh, hey, there's another name. He's on the last year of his deal, and he doesn't. And we know what Andy Reid can do with quarterbacks. If, again, it's a big if, Mahomes is out for a while, would you trade for Marcus Mariota because he's on the last year of his deal and we know what Andy Reid can do with quarterbacks?
I think if you're debating Newton or Mariota, I think you can get Mariota at a far cheaper price than Cam Newton.
I agree. And he's cheaper against the cap too. But I took the Titans over the Broncos, and Broncos won 16-0. Now on to week 7. We have the Eagles and Cowboys. We'll pick that last. Give me your first pick, Connor.
I got an upset. I'm going Cardinals over the Giants, 3-point spread. I mean, the Giants have looked better, but I think the Cardinals are looking like even better than the Giants. I don't understand how the Giants are favored in that game.
They're home, and you get 3 points at home.
Okay, well, that works. You know what? If that's the reasoning, then so be it. But I'm going with the Cardinals. I'm going with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm going with Kyler Murray. They're looking good each week. They're looking more improved. They're looking a bit more polished.
I was going to go with that, but then Saquon and Evan Ingram, they're playing and they're getting healthier, and it's a home game.
It'll be a shootout. It'll be shot for shot, and I just think that Kyler Murray and that offense can put up more points than the Giants with or without Barkley.
I don't know. I think the Giants will be able to. The Cardinals defense is trash, and I think Saquon coming back, he's gonna want to prove that he's healthy. I think he's gonna have a big day. All right, so my first pick is also an upset. I'm taking the Detroit Lions plus 1.5 over the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota had their big game last week. Detroit is playing really well. They're a lot better than people thought they were going to be coming into the year. So I'm taking Detroit over Minnesota.
Alrighty. For my lock, I'm going 49ers over Redskins at plus 10. I just don't think the Redskins can put up shit on anybody. So, I mean, I don't think I need to explain anything more. 49ers 6-0. I mean, okay, I can throw that out there.
Did you hear what Shanahan said about, they asked him about his time in Washington? He's like, I liked working with my dad. And they were like, anything else? He goes, no, the rest of it sucked.
Yeah, but I mean, you hear a lot of comments about people who get out of Washington, and it just sounds like a straight up terrible organization, top to bottom.
Because Daniel Snyder's probably, if it wasn't for James Dolan, Daniel Snyder would be the worst owner in sports.
I would almost argue that he is, but James Dolan's just more of an asshole in public and to fans and to everybody. Whereas Dan Snyder, you don't really see him. He just can't build a football team, can't build a front office to build a football team, can't do anything right for football.
I wonder if he's going to be able to get anybody to coach his team, or he's going to have to hire an assistant coach or something. All right, my last pick is another upset. I took the New Orleans Saints, who are plus 4 over the Chicago Bears. that Bears offense is trash. Still trash, even if Trubisky's back, which I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if he is.
Haven't heard for sure, but I agree that I think it's time soon. The time is approaching. They don't have a first round pick this year, which sucks for them because this would be the year that you take another quarterback and you move on.
We're talking
Trubisky.
about the Bears who passed over Mahomes and Watson.
They probably wouldn't use a pick to draft the right quarterback, but they need to draft a new quarterback.
It's going to be, I don't know what they're going to do because Trubisky's not a good quarterback. But yeah, so I'm taking New Orleans who, and they've been playing really, I mean, they've been some ugly wins, but they've been winning games with Bridgewater. And if they can continue this, I mean, when they get Drew Brees back, my only fear is Alvin Kamara's not playing. So that's a little iffy, but I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints over the Chicago Bears. Now on to the game of the week. The Philadelphia Eagles in Dallas, first place on the line in the NFC East. The 3-3 Eagles, the 3-3 Cowboys. Hatred runs high in this rivalry. Who you got, Eagles Cowboys?
It took everything in me not to take the Cowboys since whenever we pick against the Eagles win. But I'm going with the Eagles over the Cowboys 34-28. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think these offenses are just going to go back and forth because both defenses have underwhelmed in different ways. And both offenses have underwhelmed in different ways. But I think the offenses will get it together because the defenses just aren't that good.
I actually agree with you. It's going to be a shootout. I agree with you in terms of it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be whoever has the ball last wins. And I'm not going as far as the ESPs and the Joe Gillios that say this is the biggest game of Carson Wentz's career. I mean, that Green Bay game was pretty big. That Carolina game 2 years ago on a Thursday night was big. The game in LA that he got hurt was big. So I'm not going to go as far as saying this is the biggest game of Carson Wentz's career, but it is a huge game. And the Eagles, if they want to get where they want to go, they have to win this game. At the beginning of the week, I thought things were going to go in the Eagles' favor because, Dallas was riddled with injuries and all this talk in Dallas of Jason Garrett getting fired. And then all this stuff came out in Philly about Carson Wentz, about the offense. And we saw what happened on Sunday. I don't know. I'm going with 31-27. Eagles are going to win.
I like it.
It's going to be whoever has the ball last. And I think Carson Wentz is going to get that signature win that everybody thinks he doesn't have yet, which he does have. He's got the signature win against Green Bay. He's got the signature win against Carolina. If it wasn't for him, they probably don't win that game in LA, even though he got hurt. But I do think that he's finally going to silence some critics. There are going to still people that go against him, and these idiots that don't, that want to go against our quarterback. But let them be who they are. The Eagles are going to win 31-27. Dallas will lose their fourth straight. Eagles will be in first place in the NFC East, and at least for a week, all will be right in Eagle Land.
I pray. I hope so. But I agree. I don't think it's the most important game of Carson Wentz's career, because Carson Wentz will have more important games down the road because there's no Nick Foles. So if we are going to the playoffs, if we're getting places, it's going to be with Carson Wentz, which means there's going to be a lot bigger games in his career than a game mid-season against the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I get that. Like, up to this point, do you think it's the biggest game of his career? So, like, you don't think about any games in the future because obviously if you get to the playoffs, that's your most important game. If you get to a Week 17 game that you need to win to win the division or get into the playoffs, that's going to be the most important game. But up to this point, Week 7 of the 2019 season, and you think about 2016, 2017, 2018, is this the most important game of his career in your opinion?
I'd find it hard. I'd have to look back and stuff, but I'd find it hard to argue that this specific game is the biggest game. But I did say that the winner of this could win the division. So I do, in some respects, understand the perspective. I just find it hard to believe that you can just call a random game in the middle of a season the most important game of the season based on
really
going
random,
back
though?
3 years.
Because it is a division game. It is the Cowboys. It is against Dak Prescott, the same draft class, Zeke Elliott. Like, is it really random? Like, I don't think it's the most important game.
I think the games were massively important the year that Carson Wentz had near MVP caliber season. If it wasn't for that injury, I think some of those games are more important. And essentially, they kind of proved true because his performance in enough games got us into the playoffs, and Foles would take us the rest of the way.
If Nick Foles started that entire season, they don't have him field, they don't win the Super Bowl.
They don't make it that far. That was a lot more on Carson Wentz than people want to give it to be. So
I agree. All right, so that was the Kelly Green Hour here. The week of Dallas week, Sunday night. Everybody watch the game. Tweet at us. We're going to be sitting there biting our nails with everybody as the Eagles need to win this game. It's a huge game. Let's be real. Let's be honest. The fact that me and Connor both picked the Eagles to win, though, kind of Dallas might win. I'm just saying, because that's what tends to happen. You can follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. That's Connor TEN. You can follow me at Twitter at LJHarrell54. That's LJHARRELL54. And you can follow the Always Next Year podcast Twitter at ANY podcast. For Connor, I'm LJ. We're going to send it out to the Jackdaws to lead us out. Eagles, Cowboys Sunday night. Thank you for listening to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.